Where have your film reviews gone?
You've not been paying attention. For those who've been asking why have you not been reviewing films on this YouTube channel for a while, the question has already been answered many times. Go over to the Big Damn channel, link will be at the end of this video. I weekly discuss movies on the Big Damn cast over on there. So if you want to hear my immediate film review thoughts on stuff from this point on, head over there. However, I do respect that a lot of you subscribed last year because you wanted to see my film reviews in full. I haven't been able to see a movie a week like I was able to last year, and that's life. Life got in the way. Life and freelance work and applying for more freelance work and all that stuff. And some pretty significant movies, at least in terms of like the genres and whatnot that I talk about on this channel, has been out. They've been out since earlier in the year. This year so far on this channel I only have reviewed the Lego Batman movie. Massive thank you to everybody who watched that because it did really well. And the Beauty and the Beast remake, the live action version of Disney's Beauty and the Beast. So, what I thought I'd do now, considering I'm not necessarily going to release full-size reviews for everything that came out since at this point, if you want to hear my reviews, go over to the Big Damn channel, link at the end of this video. But, and it's a big but, the Goldblum but, is I'm going to do a mini roundup now of my opinions on movies I have seen between Beauty and the Beast and today, which is July the 5th, 2017, and let you know some of my thoughts. So here we go. Get Out! Jordan Peele's, that wasn't an instruction, it was the name of the movie. Jordan Peele's directorial debut was excellent. Matt and I caught this very late in the run. It was about 2 months after it had come out, and we were surprised to see that it was still showing. We were like, great, we haven't missed it, let's go and see it now. A wonderfully executed psychological horror with a lot of comedy sprinkled in, used to the best effect. It's disturbing. It really does get you thinking about sort of like racial relationships, particularly in America, but also like over here in the UK. It's some very smart filmmaking. It takes its time, but it doesn't outstay its welcome. Like it is a prim, concise, frightening horror film that you'll be equally as entertained by as you will be provoked by. It's something to think about, and if you haven't seen it, don't seek out any spoilers, don't seek out any story notes, just go and see Get Out. We're down, we go, roll, as all the trailers kept saying. Logan! My God! This is one that I was really annoyed I didn't review considering my comic book movie theme throughout last year. Logan was spectacular. A western that just so happens to be about an X-Man with sharp knives in his hands. Logan is a wonderful, non-accurate, like a completely inaccurate take on the Old Man Logan idea. Thank God, because Old Man Logan as a film would be far too bleak, whereas this was still very bleak, but not in the whole, you know, hick Hulk family inbred way that the book is. Logan shows Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, as the Wolverine Logan. Sorry, that's my Brian Cox. Not that Brian Cox, the other Brian Cox, the real Brian Cox. It shows Logan sort of retired from any form of spotlight. Once again, he's working as a driver, just delivering like people to and fro. He's in a limo service and sort of doing little couriering jobs along the side, whilst earning money to get medication to keep Charles Xavier subdued because his powers have gone completely overboard by this point. He's basically got Alzheimer's, like early onset dementia, and it's affecting his powers. And something horrible has happened in Westchester. It's implied very briefly that something horrible happened at the X-Mansion a few years ago that has led to their current situation. And the fact that Logan and Xavier are the only two X-Men in the movie kind of suggests what happened. It's a brilliant story. He discovers that his tale isn't completely finished. There's this young girl, Laura, who's very much like you, who he has to take care of and help get to a possible mutant safe haven before some very horrible men, the Reavers, get a hold of her and bring her back for the research that they plan to continue on her and the other mutant children. It's really dark. Oh, it's touching. It's the best way to describe it is it's a western, and I hate X-Men Origins Wolverine. I quite enjoy the Wolverine. I love Logan. This is Dark Knight level storytelling using a comic book property. See it. Go, go, Power Rangers! Power Rangers, the Lionsgate reboot of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers franchise, told in the style of a superhero teen movie. It's actually not that bad. If you go in knowing that it's Power Rangers, you know exactly what to expect, and you'll be pleasantly surprised by how personal it gets with each of the 5 new versions of the classic lineup. And you'll be surprised by some of the maturity on show, but also remember that it's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. There is some dumb shit in this movie, but it knows it's dumb shit, and it's having fun with it. Elizabeth Banks chews devours the scenery as a new version of Rita Repulsa. The cast, the 5 teenagers with attitude, are the best thing about the movie for my money, and it's sad that it might not get a sequel simply because I'd love to see these 5 versions of the characters interacting again. So if you haven't seen it and you were sort of a bit hesitant, if you were a fan of Power Rangers, you'll find stuff to love. If you weren't a fan of Power Rangers, this is perfect if you're just after a really daft movie with some decent action, nice character beats. Won't change the world, hasn't changed the superhero landscape beyond the inclusion of a certain character's sexuality, which is handled brilliantly in the movie. It's not like a thing, it's just part of the story, and touches on problems that gay teens do have in the States with incredibly religious families. But it's not making waves, it's not going to change the world, even though their powers are meant to do that. But if you're after something stupid and fun with big-ass robots fighting a giant gold man in Angel Grove, give it a watch. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, a fantastic sequel to an already fantastic Marvel film. While it doesn't recapture the lightning in a bottle that the first one gave us, nothing really can. So what it does instead is takes the characters that you fell in love with in the first movie, the 2014 entry, and expands upon them, particularly Rocket Raccoon and Peter Quill. It's a great entry into the MCU. James Gunn's sort of been left to just do his own thing with this sequel. It's not heavily tied into anything else apart from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. That's it. That's the only film you need to sort of have a familiarity with to get what's happening in Guardians Volume 2. Kurt Russell has an excellent turn as Peter's real father. Again, to say much else about the plot is to spoil it, because it's a story of discovery. But highlights include anytime Batista opens his mouth, some excellent action set pieces between Zoe Saldana and Karen Gillan. Groot is now Baby Groot, having been regrown after the events of the first movie. So he's a completely different character. And Yondu steals the movie. Mantis is close, she's adorable, but Yondu, Michael Rooker, steals the film from everybody else. He's Mary Poppins, y'all. Highly recommended if you're after a really fun action flick that's suitable for the whole family, but not afraid to give many winks and nods towards specifically the mum and dad. The Founder with Michael Keaton. This is how long it's taken me to get around to discussing these movies, ladies and gentlemen, because The Founder is already out on DVD. Excellent. It's a biopic of, let's double check his name, Ray Kroc, played by Michael Keaton. And how he turned his simple sort of like milkshake machine shipping business into something bigger when he acquired the rights to the McDonald Brothers restaurant. Their patented style, the way they make everything. He works with them and then slowly begins to run away with their ideas. It's a fantastic film. It's a biopic about a man who you can't help but admire because of his business savvy and passion, but you really just want to punch in the face because he's ruthless. It's worth a watch. And the weird thing is, I came out of this movie, like, in terms of my stance on McDonald's, you live once as far as I'm concerned. Eat whatever the hell you want. Just be careful. I enjoy McDonald's. Wouldn't recommend having it 3 meals a day. I have it maybe like once a month, and I really enjoy it. It's like, oh, McDonald's, a little greasy treat. After watching this movie, I became incredibly impressed with the functions of the original restaurant, and I was able to see direct lines of how they did it back then to now. Especially now McDonald's has that redesign. They all sort of have more of an open kitchen now, don't they, with the counter and a number calling you up to the counter, and you can see more of the team working together, and you can see the aisles with everything being made and how it's being made on the restaurant floor. That is very much a part of the original restaurant, the original burger stand's philosophy. So if you watch this movie, it's an interesting take on that business, but it's also just a brilliant performance from Keaton as an absolutely lovable, hateable sleazeball. La La Land, a massive darling at the end of last year and into the start of this year. I finally got to watch it on a flight to India, along with another film, which I'll talk about next. It's fine. I don't see the absolutely overwhelmingly universal praise for the movie. It's a nice callback to the early talkies where they had to fill everything with songs and dance because they were like, we're putting on a show, like film is putting on a show, of the 30s and the 40s in particular. It's a love letter to Hollywood's old school styles, but my response to that is this: if you want to see that done really well, watch one of those old school films. La La Land is fine. However, the final 10-minute sequence it's a gut punch and it's visually impressive and it's beautifully choreographed. And you do have to watch the whole film for it to have that impact. So I would recommend seeing it at least once, but I wasn't bowled over like the rest of the world was. Bobby Burns does an excellent video on pretty much how I felt about La La Land as well, which I'll link in the description. So yeah, worth a watch once, but don't dive into the hype pool. The other film I caught up on that flight was Arrival with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. Arrival is a movie about a lady who's a linguist, like she works within languages, and she's brought on board an alien craft, one of many that's started to circle the Earth, that's just there, to communicate with the beings on board, because there doesn't seem to be any hostile action taking place, they're just trying to communicate. So she's brought on to try and translate what they're saying and decipher it as a language, and then translate their language into English so they can find out what they need. It's a great movie because it takes a premise that should be really boring, and it isn't. It's fascinating, and that is also the film's biggest problem, because by the end, when certain things become clear about the structure of the story, it also devolves into, oh, time's running out, we might have to fight the aliens now, these military people getting restless, so we might have to do this, and la la la, and you realise that the interesting take throughout the rest of the film of language as a talking point doesn't make for an exciting third act, and they resort back to sort of obvious third act stuff to wind it up. At least in terms of how a film is structured. I believe it's based on a book, and I think it would probably translate better in book form. Again, worth a watch, but it might leave you feeling a bit, at the very end. The journey to that, though, is really good. Oh, Ridley Scott, I think you're going a bit mental. Alien Covenant is the sequel to Prometheus, and the prequel, apparently, to Alien, and it's god-awful. Like Prometheus, it's got some very interesting visuals, and this one racks up the body horror even more, but it also completely contradicts the story that we later find out, or originally found out, in the Aliens quadrilogy as to how it all works. Michael Fassbender is probably the best thing about it, playing both Walter, a new android, who's with the crew of the Covenant, a colony ship that's looking for an Earth-like planet that they have found, and instead stops off along the way to examine a similar planetoid. He also plays the returning David from Prometheus, he's the xenomorph of this series, he's the baddie. So yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of Alien, you're probably going to want to see it. If you like Prometheus's visuals but wished it could have been a better movie, guess what? Here's the visuals of Prometheus, and a slightly better movie. Don't rush to see Alien Covenant. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, or as over here it's apparently called, Salazar's Revenge. You know, because we all know who Salazar is, and we're eager to see his revenge. Why can't we have Dead Men Tell No Tales? It's exactly the same as back in the 90s when BBC Two called Lois and Clark The New Adventures of Superman, and Channel 4 called Smallville Superman The Early Years. Because they're just like, oh, the Brits might not get it. What, we might not get Dead Men Tell No Tales? Never mind. Pirates 5, as we'll call it, is shit. There's some great visual stuff in there. There is some really nice character stuff in there, but all of it comes from everybody apart from Captain Jack Sparrow, who at this point is no longer played by Johnny Depp, but by some guy that must have been busking in Times Square or outside the Grauman's Chinese Theatre. It's like Johnny Depp's forgotten how to play it. It's also not entirely his fault. A lot of it is down to Disney's handling of the character, because Captain Jack Sparrow works excellently in Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, still the best film of the franchise by a country mile, because he's an excellent supporting character. He's great when he's unpredictable. He's great when you're not entirely sure what he's got going on in here. By this point, we kind of know. They try and tell us, but he's with the good guys. He's the main character. We know which way his story's going to go. Nice visual effects as always. Really great visual effects, but this is our 5th movie in the series, our 4th story, because 2 and 3 were the same film. Our 4th story dealing with the cursed pirate ship. Bored now. Dun 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 dun. Wonder Woman! DC, you did it. You made a film in the DCEU that I really like. Wonder Woman's great. Again, as a movie, it's sort of on par in terms of recent comparisons, both thematically and in terms of its quality. It's sort of on par with Captain America: The First Avenger and Thor. It's not an outstanding film, but like, there are flaws and there are things that are kind of lazy, but visually and the way it makes you feel culturally is something not to be ignored. It's great that for years Warner Brothers and lots of other studios operated on the philosophy that, oh, female-led action film, female-led superhero film won't do good business. It's great that that has been shat all over now, because Wonder Woman has completely outdone Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, and Batman v Superman. So, good on it. You know what I'm saying? It is a basic story, really well told, that hinged on the performance of Gal Gadot, who I did not like in Batman v Superman. I didn't like that movie, but I was like, she's kind of stilted. And the trailers for Wonder Woman didn't sell me either. However, it's the stuff they don't show you on the trailers that works the best. It's her innocence. It's her wide-eyed, like, take on man's world. That is the most compelling thing about the movie. It's an important film for me personally. I mean, obviously it's an important film in many ways, but it's an important film for me personally. A bit selfish, but for me personally, because it reminds everybody of something that a lot of comic book fans like myself have been dying to see again, which is, hey, guess what? Do you know why you fell in love with these superhero characters when you were a kid? It's because they're heroes. It's because they're heroes. Not because they're grim, not because they're gritty, not because they punch things. It's because they're heroes. It's the closest comparison I can make in terms of how she works is Superman the movie. I don't think the performance is iconic as Chris Reeve, but she has that same level of appeal, and she certainly balances out. Like, she's a good person. That's what I'm basically saying. She's a good person. Her Diana of Themyscira is a good person. That's what drives her. And it's so refreshing to see that in a superhero movie again. Especially in a DC EU flick. Wonder Woman, if you haven't seen it yet, go see it. I think you're going to have one or two reactions. You're either going to be like, oh my god, that was amazing! Or, yeah, it was alright. And either way, it's a step in the right direction for the DC EU. I think Justice League is going to be a step back before we see the effects of the lessons that they learnt from Wonder Woman take part in the DCEU in the future, but Patty Jenkins has delivered an excellent movie and it needs to be seen. And finally, out of the films I've seen before recording this, Transformers: The Last Knight. Have you seen any of the other Transformers movies? You've already seen this one. It's the same film again. Shit. It's utter shit. And its aspect ratios keep changing with every shot because the cameras used for every shot are completely different. It's visually inconsistent in more ways than one. It's a lesson in bad filmmaking. It's woeful. Avoid at all costs. So that's a catch-up of some of the films that I've seen this year that I didn't review here on my YouTube channel. Let me know what you thought of those movies down below in the comments. And remember, you can always check out weekly content from me, including film reviews, over on the Big Damn channel Big Damn Cast, where we talk about films and we talk about all this kind of stuff. We've had a great video just come up this week. Our interview with Tom Holland about Spider-Man Homecoming. Want to see it? Head to the channel. See you later.